Hi, I'm Fiona Thorne and I'm a crop economist in the Rural Economy and Research Division of Teagasc. And I'm going to talk to you this morning about the crop overview for 2013 and what happened to gross margins on crop farms during the 2013 marketing year, and then provide a brief forecast for 2014 and what we think will happen to gross margins for the forthcoming year. So I suppose the big news story for the 2013 year was what happened on the output side. We had yields increasing quite significantly in 2013 for our major crops, wheat and barley, compared to what happened during 2012. So for the likes of winter wheat, we saw yields increasing by about 2 tonnes per hectare on average across all farms, and for spring barley, yields were up about 1 tonne per hectare in 2013 relative to 2012. So that was a good news story with respect to yields, but unfortunately we also had quite a significant decline on output prices for the cereal sector on foot of increased production levels and ending stocks on an international basis. So this all meant that even though we had increased yields, we had a decrease in price for 2013. Coupled with what was happening on the output side, we also had slight inflation in terms of cost of production for cereal farmers. Not as significant as that witnessed on the grassland side as a result of the fodder crisis. Direct costs increased probably about 5% across the board for cereal farms in 2013. And when we put all this information together, what happened on the output side and what happened on the input side, as you'll see on the slide behind me, I'm looking at gross margins for 2012 relative to 2013. We don't see a whole lot happening between 2012 and 13. If we take winter wheat, for example, the gross margin was upwards slightly, about 10 or 20 euros per hectare in 2013 relative to 2012. Spring barley was down about 120 euros per hectare, so quite a mixed story. But the overall thing I'd say is that the magnitude of the change from one year to the next was not very significant, taking account of what has happened over the recent past for the cereal side, where you can see huge amount of volatility from one year to the next for cereals. And then if I move forward on to 2014 and the forecast for 2014, to begin with, the overall story is really for not much change in 2014 in terms of margin. And where we're coming at that forecast, if we look on the output side to begin with, yields, if we assume a normal year in terms of weather, who knows what's going to happen on the weather side, but if we assume a normal year in terms of weather, yields will probably decrease over those achieved in 2013 because we had quite high yields in 2013. On the price side, the main thing that we're looking at for 2014 is for probably a stabilisation in prices for 2014 for our major cereal crops. And this is based on current futures market trading data at the moment, where there isn't a large increase in prices. So that's what's happening on the output value side. And then in terms of costs of production, it's a good news story for the cereals, as you'll have seen already for the dairy and dry stock side. Cost of production should moderate in 2014 for the cereal side. And when you put the output value together with the direct cost of production and what's going to happen with them, the overall story is for not much change in gross margin for the cereal side for 2014. But of course, all of this is contingent on what happens to yields and what happens on price. And the last slide that I'll talk about is volatility and the importance of volatility in the tillage sector. So the average forecast that we have for 2014 is for a stabilisation in cereal prices for 2014. But we know the volatility is there in the cereal side and it's not going away. And if we use historic futures data to put a band of error or a margin of error on our forecasts, we see that the highest level that this price could go to in harvest 2014 is about 230 euros per tonne, or as low as 130 euros per tonne. But the average forecast for wheat for harvest time 2014 is about 160 or 165 euros per tonne. But I'm just giving you that margin of error there to just to remember and to remind ourselves that futures markets aren't always right, and that's what we're basing our forecast on at the moment. I'm neither optimistic or pessimistic for 2014 for the cereal side. It's really just tinkering around the edges, 5 euros up per hectare or 10 euros down per hectare. It's really just sort of a stabilisation compared to 2013.